to the Region 4 Town Hall. We have a lot of ground to cover today, quite a few topics that we want to touch on. So first and foremost, thank you for taking time out of your day to hop on with us. This is a webinar format, so cameras are off, your mics are muted, trying to keep the crosstalk minimal. However, as we go through things, if you do have questions, we do have time for a Q&A scheduled at the end of the call. So if you have questions, go ahead and put those either into the chat Q&A section. Alicia, Kim, Megan, and others will be watching that. If it's something that needs to come up and be answered on the fly, they'll alert one of us, or we'll just save those answers towards the end. So lots to go through here. And like I said, just thanks for hopping on. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please, Megan. All right. So with everything, want to be sure that we are doing everything on the up and up. So this is the standard antitrust statement. Won't take the time to read it here, nor is there a sign-in sheet or anything like that going around. However, by being on this call, you agree to follow our antitrust guidelines. I think that goes without saying. I know we take that very, very seriously. So if you do have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. And these are our members for REC 4 here. But I do want to take time to give a thank you and point out our board members at the national level with Dwayne and Ryan, and then obviously Mike and Mark as alternates as well. You guys have been doing yeoman's work at the Checkoff board. We're very, very grateful. We'll go through the list of names for the regional committee members. Myself as chair, Coulter, Kroll with Saslock as our vice chair. Do want to point out a couple new names. Zeb Herring with Brazos Masonry has joined the RAC, as well as Nate Rouge with Oldcastle as well. So we want to be sure that we welcome them on board as well. So welcome. And as always, for everybody that's on the RAC, I thank you from me and really everybody for your time and creativity and professionalism as we continue to make Region 4 strong. So with that said, I want to go ahead and pass it over to Kim, who's going to go over the national strategic plans. And with that, I'll do a little bit of emceeing in and out. You'll hear from several people today, Kim, myself, Coulter, Lauren Kennedy, Anna Shavanik, Tony Topping, and Alicia as well. So lots going on. Like I said, if you have questions, put them in the chat. And away we go. Kim, I'll pass it to you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Garen. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll just take a couple minutes here, and it's always good to remind ourselves why the Checkoff exists. What are we doing? And so our mission really is to drive demand for locally made concrete products. And our 4 objectives are really driving market share, increasing how architects, engineers, and designers think about us. So we do that through surveys, measuring our Net Promoter Score. Then we augment our Checkoff dollars with other funds. So we're always looking for partners, and we have a grant writer. We are pursuing maximizing our financial impact with other dollars. And then finally, one of the reasons we do these town halls is we want to make sure that you guys as producers and contractors understand and know what our goals are, where we're headed, what we're accomplishing in order to demonstrate value of what the Checkoff is doing. So in May, our board met, and as we've grown and we're getting better at what we do, we're figuring out what programs are working. We came up with a new focus. It doesn't change our original strategic plan, but it is helping us do a better job at accomplishing that strategic plan. So you can see there, our mission is still to drive demand for locally made concrete masonry products. But what we're doing now is we're moving and shifting to being more nationally aligned with our programs that are working, but still regionally activated. So it's still a very important role for the RACs that are on this call, that they're driving where those programs get implemented. So you can see on the right there, kind of that funnel look is starting to build our programs where they're all in alignment. They're all working together to accomplish the bottom goal. So you can see we're looking at things that provide high volume and strong position for us. And once we identify those opportunities, then codes will help us expand the market which we can sell into. Marketing creates activation by engineers and architects. It challenges them to to move and take action, and actually use more masonry. And then our education helps give them the confidence. It influences them to be able to use those on their specific projects. All these things are funneling down into design assistance, and that's where conversion starts to happen. So we build demand in the top three, we convert to adoption in the bottom of that funnel, and then in turn, it drives growth. Now you see on the side there, research. Research could really touch any one of those categories, and the goal in that is that it's a supportive action. Hey, in marketing, we need to know who is talking in the talk and who isn't. That might be research that we do. Codes and standards. We might need research to actually change the codes and standards. So research is still a part of what we do, but we want to make sure it is driving down to that adoption and driving growth. The other thing our board did implement is priority segments. This really helps us focus and have a better output on what we're doing. So if we can narrow what we do into, again, those high volume, strong position areas, we can be more effective with the dollars we have. So the three areas they've chosen are public buildings. So think of schools, libraries, government buildings. K through 12 is a big one we're starting with because we do have that high volume, strong position already. And so we want to make sure we maintain that. Warehouses in the mid-size range is where we're starting. So the Targets, the Costco's type of warehouses. Again, there's opportunity for growth there, but it's also probably the highest volume opportunity for us to move into. And we're ready to move into the mid-size. When we get into the larger Amazon's data center type warehouses, we need to do some work, some research, some innovation to be able to play in those areas. So we want to target on the areas that we can move into today. And then finally, single family residential. That's actually going to be supporting Florida and what they're working on to change some codes in that area. And then once those codes are able to be adjusted, we can probably push some marketing education codes type of work into the coastal markets that are adjacent to Florida. So all the way across to Texas, up the coast, on the East Coast. And then through that, we'll be able to start pushing inward. So that's a longer term goal outside of Florida, but it is something we're going to focus on as our three segments. And then the board also set some targets for these different categories. So think of this as more big picture, not super exact. The building demand portion being about 60%, the converting to adoption being about 40%. And this really helps us figure out what dollars should go in which buckets. They may shift as the region works together with those national programs. You guys might identify at the regional level that we have a high priority item that falls within those market segments that you want to present to the board. But in general, we want to stay within these guidelines as close as possible. So what's changed from where we were to now is, again, we're expanding national programs that are working. We're scaling those to the national level, but we want the regions to stay engaged and guide us where the execution will provide maximum impact. So with that, Garen, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, we'll talk very high level on the financials for Checkoff. If you want to go and move on to the next slide there. Like I said, just take a very, very quick minute on this one. It's important that everybody understands the strength and stability of the program. As you can see, we are currently at 14.4 million in total financial assets. So it's about $2 million in our primary, liquid checking account that, provides, the day-to-day operations and ongoing programs. But 7.6 million of that is currently sitting in investment, as obviously a hedge about, with inflation and everything else to make sure that we are making the most of our funds and being good stewards of those funds as well. And you can also see that we have roughly about $4.9 million currently sitting in escrow. I know everybody has a strong desire to want to access those escrow funds, but they are, to my knowledge, currently being held back to ensure our future success there. So, but still, we're in very, very good position. Those assets, put Checkoff, in a really good spot to to charge for the future. For promotion and education, market development, several of the things that Kim had already mentioned, that culture will mention as well, and I'll discuss a little bit here in a little bit. So it's very good financial stewardship. I feel like we're in pretty good shape there from a national perspective. At the region level, um, $430,000 assessed during the first 3 months of the year, Q1, January, February, March. And, at a penny a unit, right, the math is fairly easy. That represents about 43 million CMU that were assessed. Out of District A, there, Arizona and New Mexico, roughly $183,000. The Southern Midwest, 77,000. Louisiana was 15, and Texas coming in at $155,000. I've actually seen those numbers. Actually, it makes me very excited. It did represent a fairly strong market for us here in Region 4 during the first quarter of the year. And no doubt, as the assessments start coming through from the second quarter of the year, we hope to see some additional strength as well, despite some of the roller coaster rides that we're all experiencing from a macroeconomic standpoint. But overall, we're in very good shape, and it's good to see these dollars coming in. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Coulter if you want to talk about some of the national programs coming up, and I'll touch base on the regional.
Sure, thanks, Karen. So what you're looking at there is just kind of what we've spent year to date, or excuse me, since the program funding started in 22 and 23 on the national level. And you can see the heaviest weighted areas that we spent money in are design, census, and marketing. But as Kim just mentioned, the activation plan is going to change its allocation of funding moving forward. Unfortunately, I'm glad to see the education design pros is going to change. That's the lowest level funding there on the national level, but it looks like that's going to move up to about 18%. So I think there'll be some good things there moving forward. And on the next slide, you can see what we've spent in Region 4 since we've started voting and assessing and receiving programs. You can see that our allocation of funds is just a little bit different than what it was on the national level. So far, we've spent the most money in codes and standards. The design assistance shows about 12% of the funds there, but that's going to change as we move into the following year. That should be one of the largest areas that we fund. University relations, educating design pros, and marketing follow that. So this has all been directly voted on by the RAC board that you saw earlier for Region 4. So excited to say if anyone out there wants to have a say in some of these programs, please show up to the meeting. And Garen's gonna beat that drum again here soon. So Garen, I'll let you take it forward and talk about the individual programs.
Yeah, we're not going to go through the RAC 4 programs line by line here. The list that you're seeing in front of you represents the programs that we've been supporting since 2023 through 2025, and then next slide we'll touch on 26 as well. Really, this is just a good snapshot on where we've been spending our money. I would say, rather than focusing on individual dollar amounts, I'd encourage you to look through the variety of initiatives that we are supporting. Obviously, a significant portion of our investment is dedicated to, educate the architects and engineers and those design professionals. Through the efforts from the Design Summit, the Continuing Education Program, partnerships with, the Masonry Institute of St. Louis and CMC and the work being done there. Those efforts have really helped ensure concrete masonry remains top of mind when talking with those designers and the decisions that they are being made, and it dovetails well in, with some of the things that Kim and Coulter have already mentioned as well. Obviously, a lot of money going into codes and standards to be sure that ensure that masonry continues not only from a technical foundation, in terms of those codes, but also as we watch legislative activities very, very closely. And then, one of my personal favorite is the work that we are doing on the university side as we support, student travel, research, those academic partnerships with Demetrios and others as we kind of work towards, gathering the data that helps continue to support our industry, but also is educating the next generation of those designers who are going to be deciding what materials get used on those walls as we fight for more and more wall share. You'll also see investments here, marketing, market development, those regional campaigns, trade show activities, there's a number of things here. So finally, we're finding the projects that look to the future, right? That's the primary thing here. The things that move the needle for us as an industry and those initiatives that demonstrate the value of concrete masonry in modern construction. If you want to go on to the next slide there, Megan, we'll talk really quick about 2026. These are the programs that the right met and discussed and voted on back in the November timeframe with Tony leading the charge with codes and standards with $220,000 there. One of the things I am excited about is potential for a university outreach coordinator as part of our university relations and research there. And then I already mentioned Dr. Calzadas with his work in showing the resilience of masonry as he starts phase two, the storm surge resilience on those low-rise buildings. So thank you for your work there. And then obviously the work that Clutch does as well on the marketing side, because if we're not telling people about what we do, it's very hard for them to reach back out to us. So that's where the current the funding has gone. Some of those in the 23 to 25, that money has been spent. Some of those are still being funded. Those funds are allocated to them. And then also the ones here in 2026. However, if you want to go on to the next slide very quick, Megan, if you want to get a little bit more educated on the national programs, the town hall that took place here a month or so ago, the national town hall recording is available online. So let's leave this slide up for a quick second, if you don't mind, Megan. Get your phones out, scan the QR code. That'll take you directly to the recording of the National Town Hall. I strongly encourage everybody that's on this call to take the time, if you didn't listen in live, take the time to go ahead and review that. Be sure you're fully up to date on all the exciting activities that we have going on at both the national level and the regional level. Give everybody a quick second to do that if you haven't already. All right, thank you. All right, and then I'd like to turn it over to Lauren Kennedy, talk a little bit about the Block Design Collective update and other activities that she has going. So Lauren, take it away.
Thanks, Karen. Howdy, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good start to your week. So we're going to go right into our team map, which I'm sure most of you have seen multiple times. The biggest change is that we did lose Chuck, and so we are looking for another Region 1 person. So if you guys have any ideas or know of anyone that lives in that region, have them reach out to Tino, and we can kind of get them sorted through that hiring process there. So before we kind of get into the regional activities, I want to take just a second to talk about the BDC at the national level. So our whole team is aligned to be able to influence projects that result in one of two things: adding block into projects or making block more efficient. And so I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that as we go. So block's influence. So, we're focused on one important metric that we really want to grow. So the metrics block's influence, which is the sum of blocks added and blocks assisted. And so blocks added are when we utilize project influence to add block into projects that were not blocked before. So like if it was going to be tilt up, or if they were considering a different material and we get it to be blocked, that's blocks added. Where blocks assisted is different, because that can be making a design more efficient, more effective. That can be helping on a wide variety of projects that then influence the use of block in the future. And so blocks assisted is a really important metric, because it really does kind of speak to the silent, gray area of our influence and kind of building that trust and reputation over time for the Block Design Collective. And so both things are very, very important, but the ultimate goal is to even lead the blocks assisted into the blocks added over time, but you kind of need both to be able to get there. So this is an example. So this was a project where a producer architectural rep identified a school addition in their market. It was not looking to be masonry after a conversation with that architect. So the rep offered the idea to meet with their engineering team, which is the Free Service Industry Funds for ACs, which is us, to provide a preliminary design and estimate. And so the architect, basically had this opinion that we couldn't use masonry for storm shelters, but they did agree to kind of hearing out that discussion in that meeting. Our team listened to their specific design concerns, put together a design estimate presentation, walking through a masonry solution tailored to their needs. And so it was a slam dunk. It went really well. However, it did not go masonry since they were a little too far along in the drawings to have to redo their drawings. But fast forward 6 months later, and the next 4 schools that this design team worked on went masonry, utilizing this project as their baseline decision. And so when we're tracking our ROI and kind of this assisted influence, whole little situation that we're doing, these 4 projects that we actually influence don't even show up in our numbers or impact or the things that we're reporting on. But this is why it's important to get in and have the conversations. Even if you don't get that initial win, it can lead to this trajectory of, simultaneous wins in the future. And then this was one in Region 4. And so this was one that Mark Wilhelms brought forth. This was a school that Park Hill's a large company, and they were designing the school. They just said, hey, we'll give you this to kind of review. And we ended up reducing their scope by like 15 to 20%. And so again, this is that assisted type of effort. But now, this engineer, we gave them some software, Masonry software, and a couple other things, as well as having a discussion to where they now, have a better understanding of how to design with block, but they also now can take this forth into their other projects and potentially bring us in sooner or have the knowledge to design it more efficiently moving forward. So just kind of another example of how an assist can actually lead to a much greater impact than what we initially think. So as we continue to get project opportunities to influence block, we really find, again, that project influence can make a significant impact in today's market share. So there's a lot of 50-50 situations out there where the structural material selection could go either way. So by catching projects early, we are working to shift those opportunities to CMU. As we continue to grow in trust and credibility and outreach, we can continue to control our impact into bringing more CMU projects to the table. And then as we kind of look at the national program's growth and impact, we can utilize the metric of block's influence to quantify that impact. So we know the cost of block, we can quantify the amount of wall square footage or the number of block, and we can quantify the market that we're directly influencing and number of blocks influenced. So this is our lead metric to qualify how we're growing, how we're being more efficient with our dollars, and ultimately that ROI that we can provide back to the industry. To effectively quantify our RO and our impact, we currently utilize a study done by a competing design assistant group. However, we're currently in the process of collecting data, feedback, and results to kind of qualify our design assistants and demonstrate that statistical impact. So this will require roughly like 3 years of project assistance data. As we assist on projects, we track our efforts and how much we're able to influence them, the parties involved, data on the project. And then we can kind of put it into a bucket called waiting for construction. And then we'll kind of come back and reevaluate that once that project has been built to kind of interview the design team experience and figure out what that impact actually was. So this will kind of inform that tail effect factor that Tino has mentioned a couple of times. But for now, we can utilize current studies as the baseline assumption. So here are our current design assistance metrics as a team. So we learned about capabilities in 2025, continue to stay, being able to adapt and adjust to try to hit these things to the most effective efforts. We obviously have tried a lot of different strategies. And so, we keep learning from each of those. These metrics do not include the significant time our team has put in with communicating with investors, associations, all the different groups to try to leverage everyone that we can to help us into this. So, we're on track. We're working to kind of increase these numbers, and we'll continue to do that to grow this over time. And then you can see the education goals. So we are already, kind of exceeding some of these education goals for the year. The contact hours, based on the fact that this was through Q2, will realistically hit by the end of the year. Same thing with the event attendees. And so we're on track for all of the education metrics. And I think the bulk of our education events across the country are going really well. All right. And then, so these are some of the things that are not really reflected in the numbers yet. So we have 7+ national webinars on the Block Learning Hub this year. And then we're doing some national speaking engagements and exhibiting at Greenbuild, NCSCA, AIA, and SCA regional conferences. And so this is just kind of split between everyone nationally and whatever we're doing regionally. Delegated design. So Tino did just release the first presentation on delegated design, which is super informative, and that's on the Block Learning Hub now. And then the volume 2 is coming out in the 3rd quarter of this year, so fairly soon. And then 3 projects in 2026 are slated for delegated design through BDC efforts. Prefabrication is another thing we're honing in on. And so volume 1 is going to also come out this year. And then volume 2 is going to kind of move into next year. So we're working to provide those solutions and information around that stuff as well. CMHA collaboration, if y'all were just at CMHA, they did talk about this. So we collaborated on the lintel design manual, which actually came out really well. And Nick talked about that in detail. And so it is nice when we can kind of partner together and produce things so that not just one group has to kind of, allocate funds to redo some of this stuff or to create new stuff. Same thing with the screen wall calculator. And then K-12 resource development. So there's a presentation that has been developed this year for K-12, and then Region 4 is actually producing a K-12 case study, research study that I'll talk about in a little bit as well. So these are kind of some of the things that don't necessarily get tied up into those numbers, but we are working from all angles to try to, create things to build trust and overall grow market share over time. Okay, so this is an example of a Region 4 project proposal. So this is one of those situations where blocks added is actually directly measured. And so Coulter brought this project in. And so this is a on-queue gas station. They're in the Oklahoma area. I just wanted to show you all an example of like what these look like and what gets presented back. And so they were having some issues with their original design. And so they actually shifted to metal stud with CMU veneer. So then we were trying to go back to actually using CMU structure and alleviate some of those issues that they were having. So we did put this together. This is a, it's a gas station that could be built repeatedly. So in talking about tail effect and kind of affecting numerous projects, while one of these structures is not massive, you could continue to have the impact as they continue to build out chains like this. And so this was one of the ones we did. We had a meeting, we talked about it. We got the whole design, worked up in a really efficient manner. You can go to the next one. So you can see this was put together for them. We were able to present this whole thing for what they needed. And then this was also internally braced during construction, no external bracing required. So that was something that they were happy to hear. And then the next one kind of shows the pricing, and we gave them 3 different options based on what their criteria were. And so again, like giving them this ability to kind of look at this and evaluate it and take it in when they're comparing these other materials is a huge, huge asset. And so this is something that we obviously, these are the things that are considered more the home run type of applications that we really want to get our hands on. But in order for groups to really send us this stuff and just tell us about projects and give us this information, it takes, trust, relationship building. And that's where we really need to lean on investors to kind of bring this stuff and have these conversations when y'all are out and about kind of doing y'all's regular jobs and stuff, because we're able to really provide a lot of information, and obviously it's free of charge to them. And so then they basically have all this to now evaluate what they're doing. And so I think it's a huge, huge thing to note, but at the same time, Blocks influenced and bringing projects at any stage, which I'll talk a little bit more about, is also a huge, huge thing to do, because then they build that trust. So then we'll get into the next one. Okay, so as far as Region 4, outside of just projects and building stuff around getting projects. So I'm also developing a speed and cost of construction presentation. So I'm working on that right now. I'm almost done with kind of the first draft. And so this one, what my goal is to, it's information that's relevant to architects and engineers, of course, but it's through the lens of a contractor. And so I think what's going to be big about this one is just kind of hitting on the challenges that go into design, and things that maybe don't get done extremely efficiently or extremely well can have a huge impact from the constructability perspective, which just affects cost and all those things. And so this presentation is kind of meant to be from that lens. And so I think it really will be good for whether it's a GC or a mason contractor or an architect or an engineer kind of reviewing it, but that's the goal with this one. And then, it's built to really make the case that concrete masonry is cost competitive when it's judged apples to apples, not just considering, the base materials that get applied in some of these other wall systems and such. And also when it's efficiently designed and it's really designed and being leveraged for all of its capabilities appropriately. And then I'm also actively working on a smaller data center project in the region. They right now are trying to convert it from tilt up to concrete masonry. So just kind of another example of things that are coming in through conversations, but we have to really kind of be out there and asking the questions, and we really need the investors' help and all the sales representatives' help to kind of be bringing the BDC into these conversations so that we can get our hands on that and really kind of have an impact moving forward. And then the K-12 case study that I mentioned. So I'm in progress with that with Last Architects. This is a single wide school that is in Somerton, Arizona. So this is a rural community. It's out there. They really were on a strict budget, and they ultimately went with a single wife application. We are also going to compare some hybrid CMU assemblies in this to make it applicable region wide. But these are just some of the themes that we're kind of targeting to discuss. This is going to be a pretty in-depth project and program, and we will be able to develop even more resources from like the initial just project and stuff that gets created. There'll be a presentation and stuff, but then I think we can really branch out with some of these main topics and leverage them appropriately from a K-12 perspective. So this is ongoing. This will continue to go through this year and probably into at least the first quarter of next year with them. I'll be in Arizona next week, so I'm actually going to meet with them and kind of discuss just overall strategy. We're getting a table of contents built out, and then they're already having conversations with that project team and such. This is gonna be a really fun one. I'm excited about that. And then the last thing, so this was the example. So Mark Wilhelms just brought us into a active construction project. It ended up being a pretty in-depth discussion back and forth. We had a couple different meetings, but basically they were having some issues. The inspector was having some concerns with block and stuff, and Mark brought us in. And so we were able to, Jason Thompson got on and was really able to kind of help them. We were able to get another engineer to kind of provide a letter saying that what they had was good and such. And so this is just an example of like, it doesn't always have to be the perfect situation. It doesn't always have to be the project in early stage before it's, even design type of thing. We can really help and leverage our resources to help masons build credibility, all these different things. So just as you guys are having conversations and thinking about things as we're in the beginning and we're building awareness, it's important. If you need an engineer for something, just reach out, because we will help to kind of get that awareness and that trust built out. And so basically, the ask for producers and sales teams is really any block specific engineering question, like anything that comes up, any stage of construction, send it, because we can at least attempt to get our hands on it and help and just at least build those relationships. And then hopefully we get more and more and more of those projects that lead to blocks added over time. So that is the end of the Region 4 updates. So then we just have a quick update on the Block Learning Hub efforts. So I think everyone on this call is probably familiar with the Block Learning Hub, but this is our free on-demand educational platform. So you can scan that QR code. You do have to register, but then you have free access to all the stuff that's on there on demand, and then you should get notifications and such for the live. So the strategic goals of the Block Learning Hub is, some of these are no-brainer: knowledge development, skill development, and then showcasing innovation kind of comes more in the future. You'll see with our schedule and some of these next slides. And then industry engagement. So also for the industry to be able to participate in things. And then, so we launched the Block Learning Hub in 2025, 2026. This year has really been a year of continuing to just build that baseline of knowledge and information for engineers and architects. And then we're now kind of shifting to that contractor realm, which is that speed and cost presentation. And then 2027, we'll be kind of shifting to industry innovation and kind of start to get Checkoff funded programs and case studies and things kind of built into that platform. And then we just kind of continue that growth and innovation based on what we deem the needs are. Here is the schedule. So this is through the rest of this year, and then we will obviously keep continuing on into 2027. So most of these have already, or at least half of these have already been created. And then the rest of these are coming out every 3 weeks to every month or so. And then the last thing is that the Beauty of Block Train the Trainer program can help producers and sales reps become trusted educators in their local markets. So you guys can actually get trained on any single one of these presentations. And you take a test and you go through the process, and then you can take them and give them. So if you need fresh material, if you don't want to create fresh material or whatever the case is, you can take ours and you can run with them after you do the train the trainer. So there's definitely been a lot of this nationally already kind of starting out, but the more that we can do this, we're trying to make it easy also. So if something's already created and it works well and it gets the point across, then you can take it and run with it. So this is kind of a big emphasis and something that really helps our overall mission. And that is all I have. If y'all have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Lauren. And we'll turn it over to Anna Shavanik for marketing update.
Thank you. So I'm just going to walk through kind of a quick overview, give everybody a sense of what we've been working on, both on the national level and regionally for Region 4. So kind of from the top level, when we think about the national marketing campaign. So really, this has been, at the beginning of the year, we've been focused on more general omni-channel awareness, focusing on our primary audience of architects and then kind of secondarily contractors. A lot of the work we're doing on a national level and have done for the first part of 2026 was creating content and awareness ads that we've seen through some of our partners like Adaptive. So this would be display ads, native ads, and also social ads. When we think about how we regionalize that for Region 4, so we're really kind of trying to drill down more into the specific markets. Looking specifically at projects that are incredibly impactful within Region 4, trying to bring in additional local audiences. And we'll talk about that a little bit in some of the upcoming slides with some of the work we're doing with AIA sponsorship. And then trying to find any sort of local stories that we can highlight and trying to really make it more of a focus for Region 4 on what's working and where we have stories that we can tell. So when we think about just the last quarter that we've gotten through with quarter 2, in Region 4, we were taking the national content about efficient design and kind of trying to regionalize that through some of the work we did in the campaign. So on a national level, the focus on the kind of efficient design topic. We saw that in the work that we were doing with Architect Magazine. That's a publication where we've had a couple of sponsored articles that talk about different things relating to efficient design, whether it be through K-12 education or carbon. We also had a sponsored webinar with Architectural Record. So that was a great opportunity to generate some more leads. And then continuing to run what we call native and display ads to help promote both the Beauty of Block and particularly the Block Design Collective. And then also the work we do with social media promotion and some of the lead gen ads that have been kind of a new piece we've started weaving in starting in Q2 of this year. So Q2 focus was efficient design on a national level. As we look at Q3, here the focus is moving to safety. So we're still going to be weaving that into the work we're doing for Region 4. Some of the kind of top level metrics we've seen for national and regional, really good results. The one caveat I'll have here is that as we've kind of looked earlier in the presentation at some of the shifts that need to be made to focus more on demand generation and what that translates to with marketing is really lead generation, we're going to be shifting some of our tactics a little bit. So some of the examples you see on screen, like the animated or static ads, these have been great tools for us to help generate awareness. But we are going to be kind of shifting as we look at the latter part of the year towards more lead generation, particularly those that we can get over to Lauren and the BDC to help create more demand. So Region 4 specifically, when we look at the marketing plan for Region 4, it include kind of a lot of different tactics, which is a bit of a shift from where we were last year. So last year's campaign, if you guys recall, was kind of focused on local trade shows, and there was some good results from that. But we took the best learnings from those trade show opportunities and kind of applied it to how we could expand on that for Region 4 this year. So that included some AIA sponsorships where we're going to have the opportunity to actually get attendee lists for some of the AIA events. We have work that we're doing on Adaptive. Those are native ads, and we'll take a look at those in the presentation. And the other thing that was really kind of a cool addition this year that's gotten some great information and work that we can kind of, piggyback on as we develop more content is a regional survey that was done. So kind of just jumping into what we have for different marketing tactics. One of the pieces that we worked on were what we call boosted social posts. So these are a little different than what you would think of with just a typical social post because there's the opportunity to put marketing dollars behind promoting it. So these posts were made on the Beauty of Block channel. So if you're on LinkedIn and hopefully you're already following Beauty of Block, you've likely seen these posts. We're able to apply some marketing dollars to help promote them within Region 4. So more people within Region 4 are going to see these posts in their feed. They're going to be given the opportunity to click. And what we're using as kind of a driver with these posts is some project profiles that are specific to Region 4. So what we've had thus far this year, we've done a boosted post around the Lowell Observatory, and then we also did one around the Little Singer Community School. Had some great results with both of those. Really high engagement, which we kind of measure based on how many people are clicking to that post and looking at that content. We're surpassing what we would typically see with LinkedIn benchmarks. So it tells us that this content is resonating in Region 4. There's actually a new post that just went live at the end of last week. So when I'm done presenting, I'll drop a link to that in the chat because we'd love to get everybody to take a look at it. If you do get a chance and you can scan these QR codes, if you haven't already shared these posts, we'd love for you to do that. The more that you within Region 4 can actually share these posts with your networks and help drive engagement, whether you're liking them or reposting them, the more help it's going to be in terms of helping generate more eyes for these posts and getting more people to click on the profiles. And these profiles really do tell the story about how successful CMU is in each of these applications. So they're great resources. The other piece that I had included in here for us to take a quick look at is what we've been doing with adaptive. So this one's a little harder to understand than our boosted posts because these are what we call native ads. These tend to fall on content you might be viewing on other websites. So you might be on a news site, you might be on a social media site, but you're looking at content and you see little ads popping up that say sponsored for you or for you. These are native ads. And so within Region 4's plan, we had some budget set aside to develop these ads. What we did is we actually used them to help promote the project profiles that are on the Beauty of Block site because the stories within those profiles are so strong. So we ran a native ad that promoted the Little Singer Community School profile. We've seen great results from this. Tons of clicks. People are clicking on the ads. That's taking them back to the Beauty of Block site. So this continues to be a good tactic for us in terms of generating more awareness and getting people, if they're on a different site, they're seeing this content. To help put it into perspective too, is what we're doing with the native ads is we're using account-based marketing and NAICS code marketing. So we're not just targeting random audiences, we're actually drilling down into those audiences that matter within Region 4. So the architects, engineers, contractors, those firms that we've identified that have the most opportunity for the Block Design Collective to work with and partner with on future projects, that's who we're trying to target with these ads. And we're seeing some really good results from those as well. And then the other piece that I want to touch on briefly here, and I think we're going to have an opportunity in the future at an upcoming meeting to give you guys more details on it, was the RAC4 survey that we developed. So over 294 respondents for this piece. We had a pretty good mix of architects, engineers, and general contractors. I think we would have liked to have had more architects respond, but we saw quite a few. And the key takeaways, the information that really kind of stood out to us that's probably most important to share with everybody. So we saw that people were really getting engaged with the idea of having free design assistance, which is such an important piece for what we're trying to promote with the Block Design Collective. That's probably our biggest opportunity here, and it gives us a really good snapshot of what people are thinking about, particularly architects, that they are interested in further education. They're interested in webinars for continuing education. So we're on the right track in terms of what we're trying to do to push people to, whether it's the Block Learning Hub, to take those courses and earn continuing education credits, or to trying to direct them back to the BDC so they can fill out the project forms and get design assistance. So that was a kind of a really good positive takeaway from this. Like I said, I think we can get into more details when we have more time at a future meeting. And the other thing I just wanted to touch on very briefly is that in addition to everything we're talking about from kind of like a paid media is how we'd qualify some of this marketing standpoint, we're also doing content development work. So the content development has been around those project profiles I've mentioned so far this year. We've done 4 different profiles, and then we have a couple more that are in the works right now. I think Jarrett Middle School and Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine are in process. The other cool thing with these project profiles is they are available on a new landing page. So you can actually go to a landing page to view these profiles along with other regional profiles that we've developed for RACs 2 or 3 or 5. But you can sort the profiles by region to see just what's within Region 4. And then the other piece that's in the works is a K-12 flyer that kind of coordinates with what Lauren mentioned earlier about the work she's doing with Last Architects. This is kind of an overview of K-12 education opportunities for CMU. It's a piece that's being developed nationally, and then we're going to regionalize it for Region 4. So we'll make it more specific to the audience in Region 4. And then the last piece that I had in the deck that I just wanted to kind of go over is that one of the things we shifted this year with the plan was we originally had some dollars set aside to do native content development with local business journals. But the decision was made that we might not really get really good bang for our buck with that kind of work, so that we were going to shift instead to doing some local AIA sponsorship. So we've done some work over the last couple months identifying where the best opportunities were with the budget that we had. And we've got some great opportunities lined up with a number of different local AIA communities. So we're talking about work with Texas Society of Architects, where we're going to do a project profile, half-page ad, and some e-newsletter banners. We also have work that we're doing with AIA Dallas for an e-newsletter ad that's going to be going out throughout the month of September. And then there's some upcoming events, like AIA Louisiana has an event coming up where we have a couple free passes to their show. I think it's October 1st and the 2nd. So if you're here for the meeting and you're thinking about being available for any of these local opportunities, or you're working with AIA and you see an opportunity here, please reach out to me. Let us know how we can kind of partner with you, because I think it's Louisiana and Arizona, and then I think St. Louis. We're going to have some passes available, some of their local sponsored galas that we are now helping sponsor through Beauty of Block. And it'd be great to be able to kind of work with you to figure out how we can get more awareness at those events. But the good thing here is that we have some opportunities already in place for the remainder of the year. And I think this is going to give us a good sense how to kind of restructure it for 2027, where we can continue to do more work with AIA and get even more feedback in terms of some of these lists that give us good lead generation, and just more awareness with the architects in those areas. So lots of good things in the works. And hopefully I didn't take too much time, but definitely let me know if you have questions on any of that.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you, Anna. And just a quick reminder, gang, if you do have questions this year, you are dropping those in the Q&A chat. We are running a little bit thin on time, but we do want to try to set aside at least some time there towards the end to answer any questions. So with that said, Tony, I'll turn it over to you, sir, to talk about the Masonry Design Summit.
Thanks, Garen. I'll try to get through this quick update on our block work. That is shorthand name for our Concrete Masonry Architecture Symposium that we're co-hosting with the University of Texas School of Architecture in Austin. This event is a big part of our effort to educate design professionals and work with universities. The dates of this event are Thursday and Friday, October 1st and 2nd, 2026. And I've also just finalized some optional construction site tours for Saturday morning on the 3rd. Everything is happening right on the UT campus, in and around Goldsmith Hall, which is the home of the School of Architecture. Having the school as our official co-host this year has been a huge advantage. It's really given the program real academic weight, and it's helped us attract some exceptional architects to come in and present on their own concrete masonry projects that they've built and designed. For registration, as of mid-July, we already have 42 registrations signed up. Those numbers continue to climb. We have registrations from 5 states within the region already. Strong turnout from Arizona and Texas. We have some signups from New Mexico, Missouri, even some from Illinois, from some architects that do work in Missouri. We really need to get some architects from Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Kansas signed up. So if anybody wants to help us do that, we're looking for help. It's really a solid mix of architects, contractors, manufacturers, and academics that have already signed up, and that's really the cross-section we want. We want the full design team to kind of meet and cross paths at this event and work on things. I think we're well on the way to a sellout. The school also thinks we're well on the way to a sellout because we think we're going to have a ton of local participation from the Austin architect market. And so if you're from the industry and you want to be there and take part, and I encourage you to do so, please register and get signed up so we know you're coming. The speaker lineup is now set and confirmed. We have 10 speakers across 2 days. Thursday focuses on more the technical side of things. We have energy codes and thermal mass. Lauren is presenting from the Block Design Collective. We have a K through 12 school design presentation with Matt Thornton and Kirk Dillon from Dake Wells Architects out of St. Louis. And then, of course, we have our embodied carbon presentations with Heidi Jandris. The school itself actually requested that we get a presentation and talk about carbon. It's something they're very interested in, and they're very happy to hear that the industry is putting so much work into that topic. Friday, we shift into design case studies, and this is really where that partnership with UT came into play. They use their name and their weight in the academic and the architecture world to really bring in some heavy hitters from across the country. to come in and talk about the concrete masonry. And I think we as an industry do a good job with these technical presentations. I think the Learning Hub has some really good content on it, but the school is bringing in some really well-known architects to really just talk about why they use block on their projects. And they're literally coming to the symposium to talk about why they think it's cool and why the other architects should use it. So I think it's a really good addition to some of the technical information that we've become pretty good at giving out. Attendees, they'll earn multiple AIA CEU credits, including HSW across the sessions. We're targeting 6 to 7 accredited sessions in total. We've already taken care of the accreditation for all the technical presentations, and the school is working on accreditations for the architect presentations that they're arranging. We have a hotel block set up at the AT&T Hotel and Conference Center, which is right on campus. It's walking distance to everything at the symposium. That block is going to fill up. So if you're from the industry and you want to be staying on campus with the architects and the other attendees, go to the TMC website. You'll find a link to the symposium, and you can get your room block there. We're also finalizing, as I mentioned, a campus tour, construction tour of a building that's currently being constructed. Architects like to go on those types of those tours. It's got concrete masonry in it. It's got stone masonry. It's got a lot of different masonry components in it that they'll be able to see under construction, and that will be led actually by the mason contractor that will help us lead that tour. We're also probably going to set up a historical campus tour after that as well. We find that a lot of times many people like to go on these walking tours of these college campuses to learn about some of the historic buildings. So most of the heavy logistics are in place: hotel block, campus spaces, speakers. The program is set out. We're in good shape there. Now we're moving on to some of the detailed logistics like speaker travel, attendee reimbursements. Just so you know, if you don't know this about this program, if you have an architect that wants to come to this, Checkoff provides funding for their travel and their accommodation. So that's a big part of kind of the back end work is getting the travel reimbursed for all the architects. So if you have an architect, I always say if you're a contractor or you're in the industry and you have an architect that you want to reward with a trip to come and learn about masonry, or if you have a contractor or an architect that needs to learn more about masonry, put them in contact with me and we'll get them down here for this 2-day trip that's all about masonry. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right. Thank you, Tony. And Alicia, we'll turn it over to you for upcoming opportunities and ways that they can support our efforts. You have Alicia?
Hi. Yep. Hello, everybody. Hi. Sorry about that, Garen. I was just coming off mute. My name is Alicia Hodges, and I'm the Checkoff Program Director. Thank you so much for attending today. So a couple ways that you can get involved and you can help support the Checkoff's effort and really our industry's effort, right? So share your AEC producer industry databases, CMC. So we'd love to be able to reach out to the folks in your area. So if you have contacts that you want us to reach out to, please feel free to share those with us. Drive AECs to the Block Learning Hub and the Block Design Collective. So thank you to Lauren for sharing these resources. We would love for you to share them out. Really, they've been created as part of an effort for a full industry effort. And so everything on the Block Learning Hub is for you guys to share with AECs and the Design Collective to get them involved. If you see CMC updates from us, please share those out as well with other producers or your members or allied industry partners. Enroll and train the trainers. So you can become a trainer and share our presentations and use our AIA provider number. So I think you can go into the Block Learning Hub and become one of our trainers, and we'd love for you to do that. And then feature the Beauty of Block logo on your website and link to the Beauty of Block resources. We'd be happy to have you share that on your website. We've had several producers and state associations do that. And so please feel free to add the Beauty of Block website and a link to our resources on your website. And if you need help with that, just reach out. But the producer portal, I'll pause for just a second. I know we're running out of time, but if you want to scan that, if you go into our producer portal, we really have many of the resources described today and many more in our producer portal. You just need to create an account and then go in there and you have access just about anything in there. All right. Upcoming meetings, August 26th. We have a virtual live session on our National Concrete Masonry Outreach Program. Please join that. September 16th, we have a session about our codes and standards program, and then November 4th and 5th, fall board meeting. And then you can see our upcoming regional meetings. Region 4's is September 2nd and 3rd in Irving, Texas. And we'd love to have you all join us there. Anybody can come. All right, help shape the programs and investments that will guide Region 4. So here's a QR code to that meeting. So I'll pause here and you can scan and register to attend that meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. And just to note, the meeting space is only about about a 10-minute drive from DFW Airport, so we're trying to keep it pretty convenient for everybody.
Great to know. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead, Garen.
Go ahead, Alicia. Take it away.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I know we have just a couple of minutes here. So if you want to go ahead and put any questions in the chat for us, please feel free to do so, and we'll try to get those answered in the next couple minutes.
While we're waiting on maybe folks to maybe toss out a question or two, while we do have just a couple quick minutes to fill the void here. Maybe a quick question for Kim, if you're still on. Maybe you could speak a little bit more to the, I don't want to say change in strategy, but the idea of taking a little bit more of the things that we want to focus on from a national level to those, primary categories that you had on your slides, the codes and standards, marketing education, the block design collective. If you could tell a little bit more of the reasoning to take it to that and kind of simplify that, I think that's probably something that a lot of folks might be interested.
Okay, yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So what we saw in the beginning was a lot of programs that were moving in their own direction. They were accomplishing some of our goals, but nothing was really working together. Nothing was like humming in unison. And so now what we would like to do is see everything working together. So as an example, if we saw that there was an opportunity to change a code that would open up that opportunity, then we would want marketing to market that code change. And we would want the educational efforts to be focused on educating that code change. And then that all drives down to the question of, okay, well, what project do you have for Lauren to take and then convert that program? So that's one example. Now, how we're starting off with that may not specifically be just a code change at the top. Code changes do open up market that we can sell into. But what we're doing in 2027, the plans for 2027 is really to start leveraging those programs that are working well. So I'll use the design summit that Tony talked about. We saw that work really well in Region 4. And so we're actually asking every region across the nation to plan and put on a design summit within their region. So in the budget layout that the board approved, how we got to those percentages was taking those really great working programs and starting to scale them across the country. And when we did that, that's how we came into those percentages that we saw earlier today. So that design summit, you'll see across the country now going forward. Same for the investment that Region 4 made into the university relations with Frost. Region 4 is investing in Frost to go out and actually help get curriculum into universities. In our partnership and leveraging dollars, we actually have CMHA partnering with us in that now next year, where those universities, they do need support to actually teach the curriculum. So Frost is where the Checkoff pays. CMHA will help support the funding to support the professors to teach the curriculum, and that will happen across all 5 regions going forward next year. Another one is, you could call it marketing. It'll be some marketing dollars. It's also sort of an educational effort, and that's AIA sponsorships. So our national marketing program will actually drive much more locally next year. We're moving from a large awareness campaign to a lead generation marketing campaign. And what that's going to do is help drive people. The effort will be more specific to meeting engineers and architects where they are at meetings, at venues, at shows, different things like that. And so our marketing effort, all the goals of the marketing will be to get leads to the Block Design Collective. So they'll qualify those leads. They'll get them all the way down to, hey, do you have a project? Great, let's send them to Lauren in Region 4. On top of that marketing effort at the national level across the country, there was a program in Region 2 that was working really well, and it was AIA sponsorships. And so Region 2 across every state in their region put dollars into AIA. And between their partnerships and working with those local groups, they were able to start presenting at the AIA events with those sponsorship dollars. So we're now asking every region across the country to mirror this program in their region so that we have a unified message going across the country. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Garen?
Yeah, please. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. And I did see we had one other question from Christina asking about are we open to joining other AIA chapters, Austin, San Antonio, down in Corpus Christi, down in the Rio Grande Valley area? Didn't know if somebody wanted to address that or not, and then we can wrap up since we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah, so one thing we want to do with those sponsorships is we know that someone like Tony in Texas has great relationships already. And so we don't want to double dip or step on top of what Tony's doing. What we want to do is come alongside the states and the regions and work with the partnerships they already have. And so I will leave that to the regions to decide where you want to put those. This is part of that regionally activated approach. We want the regions to say, hey, with these dollars we have, we want to invest those in these AIA chapters. So that'll be up to the regions at the RAC meeting to decide that.
And if there were only a live RAC meeting coming up September 2nd and 3rd to discuss the things, right? Okay.
So work all that out.
There. Yeah, I know, right? That worked out well. Okay, everybody, we're a little bit over our time. Just first and foremost, a big thank you to the 60 plus people that joined the call. Big thanks to Kim, Alicia, Tony, Lauren, the work that Megan Kern and Katie and everybody have done. Big thank you to Coulter for your help as well, sir. Always asking great questions prior to slides going on the screen. So many thanks to everybody. Obviously, lots of exciting things happening on RAC 4. Please check the calendars for September 2nd and 3rd. Go register for the live meeting coming up. And looking forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you so much. And we'll talk later.